Will the compiler please call the roll?
Senator Rocky Adams. Senator Thayer.
Here.
Senator Yates. Representative Bridges. Representative Frazier Gordon. Representative Grossberg.
Present.
Senator West.
Here.
And Representative Lewis.
Here. With quorum being present, the subcommittee is duly constituted to do business. First matter of business is approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Is there a motion for approval?
Second.
Without objection, so ordered. Please call the first regulation.
Personnel Board, 101 KAR 1325. This does not have additional amendments.
101 KR 1325 amends to update job classifications.
Would you please identify yourself for the record?
Yes, I'm Mark Sypek, Executive Director, Personnel Board.
Thank you for coming. There are no amendments. Are there any questions from members of the subcommittee? Seeing none, thank you for coming. Please call the next regulation.
Board of Landscape Architects, 201 KAR 10030, 40, 50, 70, and 80, all with staff suggested amendments.
201 KR 10030 amends to update a statutory citation for consistency with House Bill 314 from the 2014 regular session. 201 KR 10040 amends to change references to landscape architect registration to licensing, require the applicant to pass the landscape architect registration examination, direct applicants to submit a verification of work experience form, allow relevant military experience to count toward work experience, clarify reciprocity requirements, add language relating to various licensure situations, and update material incorporated by reference. 201 KR 10050 amends to clarify which fees shall be paid annually. 201 KR 10070 amends to make technical changes and allow for an electronically generated seal with enumerated restrictions. 201 KR 10080 amends to redefine a self-directed course to mean a course of study a licensee independently creates. Allow continuing education activities to include a college course that is beyond the basic curriculum of landscape architecture and pertains to the practice of it. Change conversion of university credits to continuing education hours and provide continuity of terms, including to remove language that conflicts with industry standards. The staff amendment for this package of regulations all make changes for clarity and to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Would you please identify yourselves for the record?
Jane Alexander, the Executive Director of the Board.
Nathan Goldman, attorney.
Thank you all for coming. There are staff amendments. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendments? A motion, is there?
Second.
Without objection, so ordered. Are there any questions from members of the subcommittee? Seeing none, thank you all for coming. Please call the next regulation.
Board of Nursing, 201 KAR 20 and 506. 370 has a staff suggested amendment.
201 KR 2370 amends to require that if changing primary state of residence, the multi-state licensee shall apply for a multi-state license in the new party state within 60 days, update the retired status application form, and remove an obsolete APRN practice data form. The staff amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A. 201 KR 2506 amends to implement KRS 314-375, including to update compact final rules, and amends to update bylaws.
Would you please identify yourself for the record?
Yes, good afternoon. Jeff Prather, Board of Nursing. I'm General Counsel.
Thank you for coming. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendment?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Without objection, so ordered. Are there any questions from members of the subcommittee? Seeing none, thank you for coming. Please
Thank
call
you.
the next regulation.
Board of Certification for Professional Counselors, 201 KR 3600, Emergency and Ordinary. The Ordinary has a staff suggested amendment.
201 KR 36100E establishes pursuant to KRS 335-560 the requirement that the board comply with all rules of the Counseling Compact and incorporates by reference the Counseling Compact rules. The emergency amended after comments version amends Section 1 and 2 to update the addition 8 of the rules, amends Section 2 to add and incorporate by reference a new rule, Chapter 4 Data System Reporting Requirements, adopted by the Counseling Compact Commission on January 10th of 2024, amends Section 2 to list all the rules adopted so far by the Counseling Compact Commission, and amends Section 2 to include a more direct website address to the Counseling Compact rules. 201 KR 36100 Ordinary is identical to the E-Reg, and the staff amendment makes changes to match the emergency amended after comments version.
Would you please identify yourself for the record?
Yes, I'm Sarah James with the Board of Licensed Professional Counselors, and I'm their board counsel.
Thank you for coming. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion on the approval of the staff amendment?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Without objections, so ordered. Are there any questions from members of the subcommittee? Seeing none, thank you for coming. Please call the next regulation.
Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet, Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, 301 KAR 1140, 146, 155, 201, and 301 KAR 2178. 140 and 146 have staff suggested amendments.
301-1140 amends restrictions for Kentucky and Barkley Lakes to delete the definitions section and update incorporated material. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A. 301-146 amends requirements for commercial fishing gear to delete the definitions section, establish that a commercial gear tag shall be attached to each end of a trot line and to every 100 feet of a trot line, to reduce the maximum commercial trot line length from 6,000 feet to 1,000 feet, and establish that a commercial trot line shall be set at least 3 feet under the surface of the water. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A. 301-155 amends commercial fishing requirements to delete the definitions section, align trophy catfish harvest regulations with recreational fishing catfish regulations, remove tributaries to the Ohio River from open waters from the lower Ohio River catfish harvest for special permit holders below Cannleton Lock and Dam on the Ohio River, and update incorporated material. 301-1201 amends daily fish limits, fish size limits, and possession limits to establish a slot limit between 12 and 15 inches for largemouth bass and smallmouth bass at Grayson Lake, delete the prohibition against taking shad or using shad as bait for Lake Mingo in Jessamine County, and update incorporated material. 301-178 amends deer hunting requirements on WMAs, state parks, other public lands, and federally controlled areas to remove 2 additive hunts where the deer densities are below objective, change the preference point option from female to antlerless deer, and establish new requirements for utilizing portable stands on public properties.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Would you please identify yourselves for the record?
Jenny Gilbert, Legislative Liaison.
Dave Dries, Division Director for Fisheries.
Stephen Fields, Staff Attorney.
There are staff amendments. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendments?
Motion.
Is there a second? Without objections, so ordered. Are there any questions from members of the subcommittee? Representative Grossberg.
This may be a little off topic, but why do I go fishing with my friend who can catch 6 fish for every one that I catch? What am I doing wrong?
Dave will not give you his secrets.
The same problem I have.
All right, thank you.
I just have one question dealing with 301-2178.
Yes.
Looking at deer densities, how are those measured? Is it by harvesting rates or?
They actually conducted a health survey, and I have that here from our December commission meeting when they reported this to our commission. They did a herd health check, and that monitored the deer population as it relates to, and I hope I say this right, my biologist may kill me, abomasum parasite counts, which is APCs, and that's in the white-tailed deer. And that just gave us some significant data that showed what we've done so far has been working to control that deer density, which is the reason for this change from female to antlerless. I think we were finding that people were leaving, button bucks in the field, and that was contributing to wanton waste, which we do not want. And so by removing this language and changing it to antlerless, we're hoping that those animals will not be left in the field. They will actually be harvested and then taken, and those preference points information won't be affected. So people were leaving them thinking, well, I'm not going to get a preference point for this because it's not a female, if that makes sense.
Sure. Thank you, Jenny.
So.
Any other members have questions? Thank you all for coming. Please call the next regulation.
Soil and Water Conservation Commission, 416 KAR 1001, 10, and 20, all three with staff suggested amendments.
416-1001 establishes definitions for terms used in 416. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A. 416-1010 amends the criteria for participation in the Kentucky Soil Erosion and Water Quality Cost Share Fund. To delete definitions, change the reporting of unobligated balance of allocated and dispersed funds from quarterly to monthly, and update incorporated material. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A and amends Section 5.1 to clarify the basis for district review to determine applicant eligibility. 416-1020 establishes the requirements for participation in the loan program. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A, amends Section 3.8 to include the Commission standards for application approval, amends Section 5.2 to clarify that repayment terms for infrastructure shall be determined by the Commission based on the district's financial ability to repay the loan, and amends Section 8.3A1A to clarify that in the case of equipment repossession, the Commission's decision to lease the equipment to another person within the district shall be based on the proposed use of the equipment and the financial ability to repay the loan.
Would you please identify yourself for the record?
Yes, Dawn Basie with the Department for Natural Resources, the Office of the Commissioner.
Jay Nelson, Division Director, Kentucky Division of Conservation.
And Jonna McHugh, Assistant Director of the Division of Conservation.
Thank you all for coming. There are staff amendments. Is there a motion for approval of staff amendments?
Motion.
Second. Without objection, so ordered. Are there any questions from members of the subcommittee? Seeing none, thank you all for coming. Please call the next regulation.
Justice and Public Safety Cabinet, Internal Investigations Branch, 500 KAR 13020 with staff suggested amendment.
This regulation updates the phone reporting system. It establishes procedures for serious and special incidents. It specifies who may request an investigation. It establishes a new preliminary inquiry process. It establishes timelines and reporting requirements for initial victim contact. It requires a finding to be made and deletes the incorporated form. The staff amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Would you please identify yourselves for the record?
Good afternoon, Nathan Goins with the Office of Legal Services, Justice and Public Safety Cabinet.
Ed Jewell, Manager of the Internal Investigation Branch.
Mic on.
Hit the mic.
Ed Jewell, Manager, Internal Investigation Branch.
Thank you. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval of staff amendment?
Motion.
Is there a second? Got a second. Without objection, so ordered. Are there any questions from members of the subcommittee? Seeing none, thank you all for coming. Please call the next regulation.
Department of Education, Office of Instruction, 704 KAR 3095 with staff suggested amendment.
This regulation is being amended to update definitions, expand previous requirements for districts to implement a multi-tiered system of supports to address student academic and behavioral outcomes, and require districts to annually provide evidence of implementation to the Kentucky Department of Education. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with the draft requirements of KRS 13A and make technical changes.
Would you please identify yourselves for the record?
Lindsay Swartz, Staff Attorney for the Kentucky Board of Education and Kentucky Department of Education.
There is, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. Sarah Peace, I am the Policy Advisor for the Office of Teaching and Learning, the Department of Education.
Thank you all for coming. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendment?
Motion.
Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Any members with questions? I know Co-Chair West has one.
Yes, so we were talking about these regulations, and there was a question Some of this is goes along with the implementation of SB 9. And so the statutory authority exists for K through 3 under SB 9. But a lot of this is K-12. And so I understand there is statutory authority in other KRS, in other statutes for that. Is that correct? And could you state that on record?
Correct. Yes, it's 156.070 and 156.160. We believe that authority, in addition to the authority in 158.305, which it specifically addresses K through 3, gives us the authority to promulgate this regulation.
And you're confident that it gives you the authority to do K through 12?
Yes, we believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my only question. Thank you.
Any other members with questions? Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Please call the next regulation.
Cabinet for Health and Family Services, Office of Data Analytics, 900 KAR 7030 and 040, both with staff suggested amendments.
900 7030 amends provisions for data reporting by healthcare providers to clarify the definition for coding and transmission specifications, remove incorporated material, and establish provisions for data-related vendor manuals. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
900 KR 7040 amends to address publication of data when the cell value is 1 to 10 rather than 5 or fewer, and update material incorporated by reference for consistency with Senate Bill 133 from the 2022 regular session. The staff amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Would you please identify yourselves for the record?
Good morning. Jill Masri, Executive Director of the Office of Data Analytics with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services.
Michael Lawson, Healthcare Data Administrator, Office of Data Analytics.
Thank you all for coming today. There are staff amendments. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendments?
Motion.
Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Are there any questions from members of the subcommittee? Seeing none, thank you all for coming. Please call the next regulation.
Office of Inspector General, 902 KAR 20048 and 086, both with staff suggested amendments.
902 KR 20048 amends to require unlicensed staff who administer medications to nursing home residents under the delegation of a nurse to be a CMA-1, Kentucky Medication Aid, or CMA-2, for consistency with Senate Bill 110 from the 2023 regular session, ensure compliance with requirements of nurse aid and home health aid abuse registry checks, caregiver misconduct registry checks, and criminal background checks. Add a new language related to confidentiality and security of resident records to ensure compliance with HIPAA. Add new language to align with the requirements in 201 KR 2370 regarding storage and administration of medications from emergency medication kits. Allow a CMA to administer controlled substances under the delegation of a nurse, including a controlled substance ordered on a PRN basis under certain conditions, and make changes to comply with KRS Chapter 13A. The amended after comments version amends to delete references to and definition of certified nutritionist, change spelling of dietitian, change various references from assure to ensure, and require only licensed dietitians oversee the diet of residents. The staff suggested amendment amends Section 2 to change a reference to the registry from the caregiver misconduct registry to the vulnerable adult maltreatment registry for consistency with changes being made to 922 KR 5120, and amends various sections for clarity and to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
902-20-086 amends licensure provisions for intermediate care facilities for individuals with intellectual disabilities to require that unlicensed staff who administer medications shall be certified medication aids, Kentucky medication aids, or CMA-2s. Add HIPAA clarifications, add provisions for consistency with 201 KAR 2370, and allow a CMA to administer controlled substances under the delegation of a nurse. The amended after comments version deletes the definition for certified nutritionist, requires that patients' diets be supervised by a licensed dietitian, and establishes that a discharge planning program begins at admission and is integral to each treatment plan. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A and amends Section 312B to change the caregiver misconduct registry to the vulnerable adult maltreatment registry.
Would you please identify yourselves for the record?
Valerie Moore, Policy Specialist, Office of Inspector General.
David Lovely, Acting Inspector General.
Thank you all for coming today. There are staff amendments. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendments?
Motion.
There, without objection, so ordered. Are there any questions from members of the subcommittee? Seeing none, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Please call the next regulation.
Department of Medicaid Services, Department for Medicaid Services, 907 KAR 065 with staff suggested amendment, 479 with agency amendment, 907 KAR 3066 and 13010 with staff suggested amendments, and 13015.
907 KR 1065 through 3066, amend reimbursement procedures for price-based nursing facility services, medical supplies, equipment, and appliances, and non-emergency medical transportation waiver services. The staff amendments for 065 and 066 amend various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A. The agency amendment for 907 KR 1479 amends Section 1 to revise the definition of Medicaid program MSEA fee schedule. It amends Section 4 to clarify requirements for enteral and oral nutritional supplements, and amends Section 8 to clarify reimbursement procedures for items that are manually priced.
907 KR 13010 amends to coordinate with the amendments made to 907 KR 1315 to implement an increased rate for reimbursement for private duty nursing services, increased number of units that can be reimbursed per 12-month period, and remove a limitation that on an ongoing basis will be in 907 KR 13015. The staff amendment amends that relates to paragraph to comply with KRS Chapter 13A. 907 KR 13015 amends to implement an increased rate for reimbursement of private duty nursing services with a specific rate to be set in the current fee schedule, and increase the number of units that can be reimbursed per 12-month period from 8,000 to 35,040.
Would you please identify yourselves for the record?
Good afternoon, Jonathan Scott, Chief Legislative and Regulatory Officer, DMS.
Justin Derringer, Director, Division of Healthcare Policy, DMS.
Thank you all for coming. There are staff amendments. Is there a motion for approval of staff amendments?
Motion.
Motion second. Without objection, so ordered. There is also an agency amendment.
Motion.
Without objection, so ordered. Any questions from members? Thank you all for coming. Please call the next regulation.
Department for Behavioral Health, Developmental, and Intellectual Disabilities, 908 KAR 1410 with staff suggested amendment.
This regulation establishes the requirements and standards for the administration of recovery housing certification. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with the drafting requirements of KRS 13A and make technical changes.
Would you please identify yourselves for the record?
Brittany Allen, Director for the Division of Substance Use Disorder within the Department of Behavioral Health, Developmental, and Intellectual Disabilities.
Rachel Ratliff, the Regulatory Coordinator for the Department of Behavioral Health.
Thank you all for coming today. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendment?
Motion.
Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Are there any questions from members of the subcommittee? Senator West.
We have to slow down the bus a little bit. It's been going pretty fast today.
You just couldn't do it.
That's right. That's right. So this is a very important issue, recovery housing and recovery in general. Give us just like a 1-minute version of what the reg is doing and how it's affecting recovery housing, please.
Yeah, so this regulation is based in large part on our existing certification process we've had in place for at least through 2019 at this point. And so through our Kentucky Recovery Housing Network, which is operated through the department, it's been on a voluntary basis at this point, but coming July 1 with this reg, it will be mandatory. But essentially we collect documents that are required for certification. They have to outline specifically rules and regulations that they have in place for the house, ways that they're going to protect access to medication, ensuring treatment access, specific meetings that they'll have in the home as well. There's also also safety, just in terms of the structure of the home. There has to actually be, if in case of a fire, things of those types. So there are very specific rules, guidelines in place that have to create this supportive, substance-free living environment for individuals that are going to be in the home. We specifically utilize the National Alliance for Recovery Residency Standards. This is a national standard that is utilized by several states. We currently serve as the state affiliate for what we call NAR, and so as long as homes are meeting those NAR standards, they meet the specific standards with regard to the layout of the home, they can achieve certification through this process.
So, follow up, Mr. Chairman. So up until this point, it was kind of a best practices. We suggest you use these best practices.
Exactly.
After this reg passes, then they will be mandated best practices. Let's say that a home does not measure up to the best practices. Then what happens to them if they don't meet the standard, I guess?
So currently, since it's voluntary, we still have that opportunity for folks to report grievances to us. So if there's an issue with a home, they can reach out to us, and then we can investigate that. Now that it's going to be mandatory, we'll have that in place, but obviously there'll be a lot more teeth assigned to us being able to support a local government in potentially shutting down a home. With the updated legislation that passed this current session, they've assigned fees and fines, and so that'll also be a piece that we'll be able to institute when we add those components to the regulation. If there's a home that's not meeting that standard, we'll be able to implement that as a punitive approach as well.
So if they're not meeting best practices, there will be a fee per day, I'm assuming?
We have not established that just yet, as it.
So we're going to do that through reg
exactly.
later.
We will do that through reg at a later point, yes, sir.
Gotcha. And then, but also, someone has a grievance at a recovery house and they report it to the state. So the state can now talk to that locality, and then that locality could theoretically shut them down as well. That's
correct.
That's we're doing something totally new here, right?
That's correct.
Okay. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Does any other member have any questions? Thank you all for coming. That is the end of the meeting. Compiler, will you announce the next date and time?
We have Tuesday, May 14th, 2024 at 1 p.m.
Does anybody know a conflict with this date and time? That should work. Meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.